right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies might have inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Sirat, a film that is up for the Best International Feature Film right now at the Oscars. We recorded this one at the end of last year, screener season. I got to see this one before it hit theaters, and I love this movie. It actually made my top 10 list, and I am excited to talk about it with Chase Hutchinson returning to the podcast. We got a lot of great puzzle pieces to get into on this one. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you are listening right now. We've got lots and lots of podcasts on the way. And also, of course, make sure you are following me on social media at Piecing Pod. We got lots of live shows, all kinds of stuff coming up. So make sure you're following along. With that said, let's get into Sirat. All right, Chase Hutchinson is back with us. We're going to talk Sirat. How's it going, Chase?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk about this one. There's a lot of movies that we get the screeners for at the end of the year, and a lot of times I'm like, I haven't even heard anything about this movie, or oh yeah, that was a con thing, and then it just kind of fizzled out, and nobody's really talking about it. But this one I just randomly picked up and put it on, and then just had my mind kind of blown. So I'm very excited to get into this movie here.
No, myself as well.
It's just such a wild thing. And I wanted to say, real quick, before we start getting into it, you and we had kind of messaged about possibly doing an episode on train dreams, which timing-wise just didn't quite work out. I love that we went from that, simple little quiet story to this just horrific electronic music rave in the desert gone wrong kind of thriller-esque film. It's quite the contrast.
I'll say that both of them are very much about death, which we can get into in very different ways. But yes, the tone and pacing could not be more different.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get into a lot of what this movie's all about as we're getting through puzzle pieces. So let's just jump right into it. What do you have for your first puzzle piece here?
I mean, I'm gonna go with the obvious one, which might be boring for folks that are looking for, I don't know, sort of the more wild ones. I'll save that for later, but I'm going to go with Wages of Fear.
Sure.
Because that's the greatest movie of all time in the classic. And you could probably put Sorcerer under this too, even as I think they're distinct, and I want to kind of maybe save that one for later. But my first one is going to be the 1953 film Wages of Fear, where it's about people driving over a large expanse with explosives in the back and the kind of tension and stress of that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there are different elements in terms of how the details of character are explored in both movies, but there's that central kind of, we are going over this large expanse entirely alone with catastrophe always looming over top of everything. And so I think that's the obvious one that you have to at least acknowledge to start.
No, absolutely. It's something that I was thinking about as well. And it's interesting that, and we'll actually kind of combine it with my first piece, but it's interesting that, back then, the threat was just simply death. And now we've got just all this stuff kind of over our heads. And maybe it's the connectedness of the current moment and everything like that. Like a movie like Sirat kind of adds all this extra stress and all these other external factors from the music and from the people kind of just going out and finding themselves in these kinds of weird worlds like raves and things like that. It's a really interesting setting, but definitely Wages of Fear. And we'll bring up Sorcerer at some point too, which of course goes along with that. But I think if you were going to very simply describe this movie, Sirat, it would be Wages of Fear, so I'm glad you started off with it, meets Climax. Gaspar Noé's electronic music, also kind of a rave gone wrong situation movie, where a bunch of people meet at this underground kind of dance club, and someone spikes the punch with LSD, and everything just goes absolutely batshit, for lack of a better word. And the idea of something horrific happening during a moment of celebration, during something where people find themselves, something that should be this joyous occasion, and everything just goes horribly, horribly wrong. And Sirat, for those that haven't gotten a chance to see it, is about a father who goes to a rave because he heard that that's where his lost daughter was last seen, at one of these raves. So he's going looking for her, and ends up going from one rave to another with a bunch of the ravers that he meets there. And we get into all of this harrowing experience in these vehicles going uh, from rave to rave through the desert. And yeah, as far as movies where something horrible happens in the world of electronic music subculture, Climax is where it's at, and then Wages of Fear is what takes us through from one rave to the other.
The thing I will say is that the community in Sirat is quite different from Climax. Like the
Mm,
opening scene of Climax, where we get the kind of confessional style things to camera, that's
hmm
not a part of Sirat. It's
Yeah.
much more of a father and son looking for a missing family member, and then just us kind of coming to know these people in small ways to where they're initially distrustful of them. There's that inner outer kind of conflict, but then they kind of form a closer bond.
hmm
It's like a inverse of Climax, where Climax
Sure.
everyone begins to go at each other's throats. This
Yeah.
one, it's kind of out of necessity people bond together. There is LSD, but no one is spiking
Sure.
anything, save
Yeah.
for an accidental dosing of a young pup who ends up being
Yes.
okay. But the first sign that anything can go wrong very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't seen any other of Oliver Laxe. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, the director. I haven't seen any of his other films, so I'm not quite sure of his tone elsewhere. But like for someone like Gaspar Noé, I think it's more about like you get little like brushstrokes of who these people are, and then let's mess him up real bad for the rest of the movie. So that's kind of where he goes with his movies. And so I think definitely we have a different kind of a point of view here at the center of like who's making the movie.
Yes, and I think that's where, because there's a version of me that could very much hate this film because
hmm
it does reach a point of being pretty, I don't want to say mean-spirited because I think it's about engaging with death, but
Yeah.
it is past a certain point without spoiling. Very much everyone is doomed or
Yeah.
potentially doomed. Death is everywhere. There is no escape from it.
Yeah.
And in Climax, that kind of ends up becoming part of it, but with a camera moving in extended shots through kind of very trippy sequences. This is just we're going through the desert.
Yeah.
It's a slog. It's a very intense and also very slow kind of march to death with
Sure.
electronic music playing in the background. And
Yeah.
so it's it's interesting because I think why some people have not connected with it is because I don't think it's as much about the life of the characters as much as it is like confronting death. All of the
hmm
characters are kind of just people we get to know broad strokes about and see in small interactions. But then at a certain point, everyone, no matter who you are, once death is right at your doorstep, is going to have to figure out what that means. And they kind
Sure.
of have a conversation near the end about that, about like last words, which I think is interesting. Yeah, it's that's where I think the Gaspar Noé comparisons are illuminating in that they kind of have that very visceral feel to them, but he's playing around. This film is pretty deathly serious in a lot
Sure.
of regards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we got our big ones, I feel like, out of the way right there. So let's move on to some more pieces. What do you got next?
I'll still say Sorcerer because I
Sure.
think doing a remake essentially of Wages of Fear is not exactly what this is, but I think it ends up being closer to Sorcerer, especially in some of the sequences because I just rewatched Sorcerer in preparation. The sequences at the end where it's just everyone is dead, just it's almost like a hallucination of just we're
hmm
wandering through this like desolate space. It almost becomes otherworldly, which I know people kind of have had, I think, worthwhile criticisms and concerns about. Are you just using this place as a backdrop without really thinking about what it is? And that's where it's maybe different than Sorcerer because Sorcerer is very much about US oil imperialism, and this
Mm,
is much more just about individual people with a kind of unknown backdrop of a conflict playing out in the back. But I will say, like, Sorcerer in a smaller degree of exploring similar ideas about death, about navigating through this desolate wasteland, and then some of the presentation choices towards the end. I feel like this has to be recalling some of that in a certain way.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And I think the big theme that I took, I mean, you talked about death with this movie, Sirat, which I definitely think is a major part of it. But I think the big theme here is like you have to just look forward. You can't
Mm.
go back at any moment. And I mean, that's kind of, even though it's not what it's about, that is what Sorcerer is as far as like the plot. Like, I mean, there's no stopping or turning around or getting to safety. It's like you just have to push through all this, and so that's kind of what it is in a kind of just a different context.
And
But
it's
yeah,
about people being brought together that were very different from themselves. But then
sure,
once the world is falling apart, or once you're in a crisis, you have to pull together at least a little bit to survive. This
yeah,
becomes a little bit more intimate in that. I think the inclusion of a child
hmm,
particularly makes that a complicated thing. But yeah, it's similar in that they're all facing death, and you have to come together to survive. Most of them don't in both
yeah,
situations, but
sure, yeah.
yeah, I apologize that I'm talking so much about death, but that's I
That's
feel
the
like the
movie.
heavy thing that, especially without spoiling, where you're saying the like looking ahead,
Yeah,
there's a literal scene that makes that pretty explicit of not only looking ahead but like closing your eyes and just going on forward. And
yeah,
is
yeah.
that you need to be somewhat delusional to yourself and say like I'm just going to shut everything out. I don't know, there's like various different reads and like more cynical I think interpretations of that.
Yeah, I think it would be very fair to take a very cynical
Yes.
takeaway from this movie, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sure if that's what he's going for. By the way, I'm just kind of laughing because after I watched this movie, I messaged a friend about how great it was, and like we were just kind of talking about it, and then I went and looked up the director, and the first picture you see of him, he's just like the most good-looking dude ever, and I'm like, "What is this guy worried about death for? Like, just enjoy your life. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man." You know? But yeah. So I will go actually for my next piece. I'm going to go like the polar opposite
Do
of
it.
Sorcerer, of Wages of Fear, or any of this stuff. I'm going to go with Nomadland, Chloe
Mm.
Zhao's award-winning film. As far as these people living in vans and like, do they have a world outside of this, or is this their existence? Like, is this what they do? Because you see these characters that are going to these raves, and you just kind of can't picture them like having normal lives and 9 to 5s and normal worlds. And it's like this is their existence, and they have this like kind of found family thing going on out there in the desert. And like, do they just live from moment to moment, from rave to rave, just existing? And it's kind of the obviously the feeling that is meant to be evoked with something like Nomadland, that these people that they're just kind of living in the moment and not really engaging with the usual kind of existence that most of us go through.
That's a super interesting one because I think that because I really liked Nomadland. I think some of the criticism of Nomadland that it was ignoring like economic realities of what it means
Hmm.
to be a person living on the road in your van kind of similarly ends up coming here
Yeah.
where it's like, well, what is this broader conflict? Is it just something you're doing to kind of add tension to it? I think that the found family aspect is probably the closest one because it's like you have to, if you need something, all the other people that you have are the ones right there.
Yeah.
I think Nomadland does go a little bit more into how some of these people ended up in this place. All of the other people that we meet, save for the father and son who are kind of outsiders, they're just there. They're
Yeah.
just this is their life, this is what they do. Yeah, and I think that that kind of makes it interesting to me of it's not holding your hand through it. It is just these are these people, they have settled into their rhythms, but then it also reveals even as they've figured out kind of how to make this work, no matter how much preparation you do, no matter how good of a vehicle you have, you're going to run out of gas or you're going to
Yeah.
find yourself in a minefield. There's no minefield in Nomadland, thankfully. That would
No.
make it a
Yeah.
very different movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of you have to find a way to survive. there were some people that took that in a more optimistic way of this shows like a future after the end of capitalism where we all just band together in vans. I don't know if that's quite what either movie is about. It's out
Right,
of
either one.
necessity. It's out
Yeah.
of survival. It's this is all you have left. You have to hold on to that in order to make do. What I will say, a scene that pops into my mind from Nomadland is the little things that she held on to that were personal to herself that weren't just for survival. I
Mm,
don't know if there are as many of those moments in Sirat. I feel like they have the basic things for survival, for cooking, for music. I guess there is the scene where she's talking about the speaker and how she
mm,
loves holding on to the speaker even
yeah.
when it like blows out. She's like really drawn to that part of it. So
Yeah.
like finding meaning in small ways through like artifacts, even when you have to be very efficient. You probably can't carry that many extra things because the more weight you have, the more it's going to be hard to kind of keep on moving. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good one. I like that one a lot.
Right on, right on. Well, let's go to another one from you. What do you got?
I'm gonna go with Stalker, the Tarkovsky film, which might be
Okay.
somewhat cheating because the director has referenced this in the past. Have you seen this film?
I actually have never seen it. No,
Okay.
it's one of those ones that's been on my watch list for a while. Yeah.
Then I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I think folks that know what it's kind of about will get what I'm saying, which is that it's an unnamed country without a lot of specific details, which makes me think of the way the conflict is playing out here, like almost
Sure.
post-apocalyptic, and just people navigating through that and kind of that like continual like marching onward through time and like there being certain people that are guiding other people through it, but even they at a certain point like don't really know what it is that they can do. And in Stalker, it's that they're
Hmm.
going towards this destination in the same way they are here. But by the time you get there, everything has changed about you. There is no sort of like I sort of think, and this could be a separate one, but where it's like the kind of classic hero's journey of once you have gone on this, you can no longer return home. Like you have been changed in a way.
Right.
Obviously, some
Right.
people like don't make it through this, but that's kind of the big one where it's like hanging over this. I think this is more contemporary in a lot of regards and is somewhat more grounded, but there is kind of that more mythical feeling threaded throughout it, especially towards
Mm.
the end without spoiling it, where it feels like we've shifted a little bit beyond just this is meant to be taken 100% literally. There's
Sure.
somewhat of a more metaphorical point being hammered home, which I know some people have not had a great time with, but I think is just him saying, yeah, everything I was doing was about facing down death and the eventual realization that you are lost in this world and all you can do is just sort of give yourself over to it in a way.
Yeah. Like I said, just moving forward, that's all you really got,
Yeah.
bringing it back to Sorcerer and all that stuff. So, yeah, I will, you're talking about Stalker being almost post-apocalyptic. I'm going to throw some Mad Max in here
Yeah.
for a puzzle piece. I mean, it goes with that kind of desert landscape where is there a world outside of this? Who the hell knows? And of course, the vision of these vans just driving full speed through the desert and the dust being kicked up and all that kind of stuff. But, definitely brings to mind Fury Road, and also the focus on music. I mean, even though we aren't exactly like. We don't have a guitar guy strapped to the front of any of these things
There's no Doof
blasting.
Warrior.
No doof warrior, yeah. We could have certainly had the speakers blaring the whole time they were driving. That would have worked as a DJ version of that. But yeah, no, definitely a lot of that Fury Road energy going on here, and just the once we are driving through from place to place, it's just like that nonstop, like total lawless energy going on here, where there's no real world. It's just people just living, and then of course they also have to keep their vans going any way possible. So that's also a post-apocalyptic kind of feel there too.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think that that music part, it becomes almost like this like salve to the pain. At like a literal point they're tripping on drugs and then also listening to the music.
Yeah.
And even though there is no doof warrior in that, not to go too deep into like who the Doof Warrior is, but I remember George Miller imagining this backstory where it is someone who's been through hell and back and obviously is like very physically changed by that. But then like the music, and no one has like a flame throwing guitar, but it feels like again holding to these like cultural touch points where you can, or maybe it's just the way music makes you feel, that it
Yeah.
just kind of is a thing that helps take away the pain that is all around you and is only growing more and more suffocating.
Yeah, yeah,
Fury Road
absolutely.
is more was more fun, a lot more chase sequences.
Oh yeah, very like absolutely, definitely. Well, let's move on to another one, and I think at this point, if you need to get in any spoilers, of course we could always get into spoilers here.
I'll say I know this is similar to Fury Road, but I think Furiosa is a very different movie in tone and pace that I feel like ends up being similar to this because Fury Road is like basically a there and back trip. This is like also like set over like just real time, but the way it unfolds kind of in like chapters and like encounters and has a lot more of like the suffering and almost feeling like a mythic story. Whereas Fury
Hmm.
Road is much tighter. It's action sequence, we're going, we're doing this. This is more kind of wandering around, seeing some of like the impact on people. And that made me think of Furiosa, which I know why some people didn't connect with that because it wasn't quite as like breakneck pace, kind of always action, even though there are some like very virtuosic action sequences. I think this slows down and has those moments where it's like, oh, we really sit with the horrors of what's going on. I
Mm.
especially think towards the end, like the sequences in the desert. Because initially I was thinking Fury Road when he like the father is wandering through the desert. Spoiler alert: after his son has died horribly, while looking for his daughter, he lost someone else that was immensely important to him, and the tragedy of that. He doesn't quite fall to his knees in the same way of Furiosa, but or in Fury Road where Furiosa does when she discovers the green place is gone. But it reminded me instead of the younger Furiosa, that kind of final walk through the desert, although he's not doing it to like kill an antagonist, he's like doing it as like a mourning. And that
Hmm.
kind of becomes this like final march through this like death consumed landscape. That's what kind of keeps popping into my mind. I
Yeah,
don't think this is like again nearly as heightened as any of those, but it is like referring to some of those other ideas. And
yeah,
especially because the director said like this takes place before Fury Road, it feels like it could be something closer to Furiosa or even further back to like the original Mad Max is kind of what comes to my mind.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and yeah, and also the idea that like Furiosa and Fury Road taken together are this person kind of searching for something that isn't there anymore, and
Yes.
by all accounts, I mean, the daughter probably isn't there anymore in Sirat. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't really know, spoiler alert, but we don't find out, but probably not.
Yeah, and the futility of that you
Yeah,
are finding this way to survive and like hold on to humanity that then is also probably gone.
yeah, yeah.
And that's a really tough one. And I
Hmm.
think of like again, not to go back too far, but like Fury Road, her going to the green place, or in Furiosa, her eventually wanting return back home, and home is no longer there. The person you
Yeah.
are searching for is gone, and it's heavy. It's not a it's a
Oh
tough
yeah.
existential thing that really kind of I had seen this movie before and then I watched it again, and it's a tough watch. It's not a fun watch, even as the filmmaking and the visuals are very propulsive and exciting. Just woven throughout it is this is the end for most, if not all, of these characters. And how do you grapple with that? How do you deal with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is definitely heavy. I will go with one that is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway. Uh, I'm going to go with Event Horizon,
Oh,
the
okay.
sci-fi horror classic. But as far as a journey to find someone who is lost, and that journey just literally just takes you to hell, basically. And yeah, Event Horizon does it in a sci-fi way. This does it in
Mm,
more of a dramatic and metaphorical kind of a
yes.
way. But I mean, it is a journey into a completely isolated place that is horrific, and there's death at every corner, and there's simply no coming back from it, which is something that we've talked about already through this conversation. But I think the idea that once you go on this journey, even though there's something out there that you want, you're not
Mm.
going to get it, basically.
Yeah. And I really like that movie. I know that movie is like a pretty divisive one where it was met with pretty negative initial response. But yeah, that's a good one. Because it even as like sci-fi versus like more grounded of this earth, it is this like journey that proves futile and ends in disaster. And oof, yeah, that's a tough
Yeah,
one. It's
it
a really
is.
good
It
one
is.
though.
It's a cult classic now. I mean, I feel like most people do like it now. I think it's one of the scariest movies ever made.
Oh
But
yeah. It's a nightmare.
yeah,
And even though there's no kind of like eye gouge out moments in this, this is just like a waking nightmare at a certain point. Like after
yeah,
the sun dies, it is like, what is even the point? What are we trying to
yeah.
survive for? And sort of that like deep pit that it all descends into. Yeah. I don't think that's a stretch at all. I think like the hellish kind of feeling that it conjures up is definitely worth kind of sitting with too.
Right on, right on. Well, what do you got next?
All because that made me think of a different, I guess, because there was the Tarkovsky movie Solaris, but I'm more familiar with
Hmm.
the Soderbergh remake since we're kind of
Sure,
jumped to sci-fi. I don't know if
sure.
you've seen this. It's George Clooney travels into space to find someone that is important to him and then discovers he this ends up discovering more of a person that is alive and is there, but again everything has changed with them and with him, and sort of this like haunting like eventual confrontation with loss and death. I think this one probably is more of a stretch, but I think like some of just like the slow sequences, even as this is more confined, uh, I guess they are confined in a sense to their vehicles in Sirat, even as the landscape is. You know what? I think that's why this is coming to mind, where the vast landscapes of this desert before them are beautiful and breathtaking, but you might as well be in outer space. Like that
Yeah,
is death
sure.
out there. Like you are
Yeah,
stuck in this thing that is your salvation, but also kind of your prison at a certain
yeah,
point, especially when you come upon a minefield where you could continue to drive on or you blow up and you have to
yeah.
like sever yourself from that even as that is risking everything. Yeah,
Interesting.
I'll go with Solaris. Even though I already had done a Tarkovsky movie, I'll go with Solaris.
There we go. I like it. I like it. I like we got some really dark, horrific sci-fi in here. So yeah, let's do it. I will do my last one here, and this is a movie. It's only a few years old, but I honestly, it's so trippy and weird that I don't really remember a lot about it. But Ben Wheatley's In the Earth, which
Okay.
it's got these images in it of like music coming from the trees basically,
Yes.
and that reminded me of there's a couple of sequences here where you almost see like these giant speakers kind of like fusing with the landscape, and I wish there was more of that. I feel like as a musician myself, like an electronic musician at that,
Mm,
like I would have like really love to have seen more of that kind of being some of those trippy visuals and things like that. It really only happens once or twice in this movie, but more of that stuff of like kind of again metaphorically like drawing the music and the
mm,
equipment for the music into the earth, you know, as the title goes, in the earth, but like really connecting that and making all of that something that it's like, oh, this is kind of connected to nature in a way. And I love that about that movie, even though the movie itself in the earth just goes in some weird directions that I just had no idea what the hell was happening. But
mm.
that's Ben Wheatley for you. But yeah, so I just like that kind of visual though of connecting that technology to nature and all that.
I think the visual that pops into my mind that you made me think of is, and I'm doing another sci-fi one, the monoliths from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I
Sure,
believe
sure.
Justin Chang also referenced in his really great review of this film. The speakers in the desert kind of look like that. These
Yeah.
like towering things, especially in one of the final shots where they've left them behind. Now
Yes.
there's nothing powering them. They are just these like artifacts that are imposing and kind of sad and tragic, but also just like empty voids in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That visual kept popping into my head. Not a lot of other, I would say, connective tissue, but like that visual feels like it's calling back to something. That it
Yeah.
is this haunting kind of everything has been lost type of moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. That's really cool. Do you have any more that you want to bring up here?
I'll throw in a silly one that I was saving to the end because there's actually nothing to talk about, and I'm not the first person to make this joke. But I'll say 30 Rock because of the iconic line, never go with a hippie to a second location.
Oh my
That
God.
is the overarching thing of Sirat. Maybe just don't.
That's fantastic. Oh man. Any closing thoughts on Sirat before we wrap this thing up?
I'm looking to forward to more people kind of reflecting on it and picking this one apart because I do think there have been some like very valuable criticisms about how it reflects on the depictions of the landscape, the people moving through it, kind of questions of colonialism. And yeah, because it was a movie that had this like initial pretty like big excitement around it, and I'm
Mhm.
definitely one of those people, but I'm also looking forward to like the people that kind of take it apart and say, is this really doing that much of anything? Are we projecting all these things onto it? Or is it kind of engaging in a little bit of a more kind of painful, punishing thing that doesn't end up saying much? I don't know. This is one I'm looking forward to more people talking about and kind of sinking their teeth into and maybe discovering a love of raving or not. Maybe
Yeah.
this will be a deterrent to where you're like never gonna rave. Sorry, not doing it.
Yeah, we've got them plenty of times here in Las Vegas throughout the year, and I'm not going. I'll tell you that much. I did want to ask. Like I said at the beginning, I am not familiar with his other films. Are you a fan of any of those, Mimosas or Fire Will Come?
I have put them on my watch list to go back to them because I've
Okay, me
heard that they're
too.
engaging with similar things, but this was
Hmm.
my first exposure to him. And
Okay.
I am intrigued about kind of his reflections, and I've listened to interviews, and part of that informed why like I was talking so much about death because he seems very preoccupied with that, especially with this film and like our relationship to death and how we kind of keep it out of mind. And I'll be curious if how those other films engage with this, if this is something new for him. Yeah, I'm just looking into to learning more because this was the big film where at Cannes, everyone was talking about it. It was like, you need to see this movie. There are the quote unquote bigger names, but this was the one where everyone was like, this will kind of knock your socks off. And
Yeah.
I don't want to give people that impression of like, oh, it's this exciting action movie. It's very propulsive, it's very engaging, but it's also really punishing. And I'll be curious kind of how some of his past work maybe does similar things or not.
Yeah, and I'll also add to that that even if it's not maybe the most exciting movie per se, I do think as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself like, and even with all of these puzzle pieces we just talked about, I haven't really seen a movie like this
Mm,
before. You know, something that deals with something so dark, but at the same time has that. You know, I mean, music really brings people together. Music is the center of culture for so many people, including everybody in this movie.
mm,
There's so much excitement to that life, but then this dark undercurrent. Like there's a
yeah.
lot going on here. So
Yeah, because the
yeah.
thing I was going to say, not to close on like too heavy of a note, but I think it does complicate, especially in the scene, the final rave sequence, I guess we'll say, where they've given up hope and they're just sort of dancing in the desert. That doesn't save them. It
Hmm.
doesn't protect them. If anything, it puts them in a position to where they stumble upon something even worse. And I don't know. I'm hoping raves are not like this all the time, but I feel like, yeah, this kind of more remote type of experience, you're trying to escape from the world a little bit,
Hmm.
but the world does always eventually come knocking, whether you want it to or not.
Whew, we are ending on a downer. That is
I'm
for
sorry.
sure.
I think it will be a good one to have coffee and connect with people with and talk about. Find community that way.
Yes.
Because I do think it cares about community and people. That's kind of the only thing that there is to hold on to throughout all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the movie about a bunch of podcasters getting together and just having a nice conversation, but then it
Yes.
goes to death eventually? So yeah, that's
Sirat for podcasting.
yeah. There we go. That's what's up. All right. Is there a movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I liked Wake Up Dead Man.
Okay.
I don't know if you're doing anything on that, but that's one where the murder mystery pieces will be very interesting. Some of which are like very explicit in how they kind of call back to them, but then also ends up being about faith in a way that like really surprised me. I've seen it a couple times, but I went in to see it at a theater again because I wanted to see it in a theater before you'll never be able to because it's in only a
Sure.
limited number. And it just really stuck with me. And so that's my one that I've been really pleased with. Kind of
Right
how
on.
even on a subsequent watch, it still has some good stuff going on.
Excellent. Well, Chase, where can people find you and your film criticism and everything you're up to?
I'm around wherever. I cover festivals for the Wrap. I'll probably be at Sundance again for the Last Hurrah. I write for the Inlander, an alternative weekly in Spokane, and have like a bigger feature piece about train dreams. Although this will be out way after that.
Yeah.
And then the Seattle Times doing reporting and writing for them as well.
Right on. Well, Chase, great getting you back on the show, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a blast. Sorry for being a bummer.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Sirat. Thank you so much to Chase Hutchinson for joining me on that one. We just recently did Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, but we recorded that after this one. It's so weird when the episode schedule for releasing ends up getting all mixed up like that. So anyway, thanks to Chase again, even though he was on again since we recorded that. Also, thanks to you for listening. You might be listening in any potential order. You could be jumping from episode 1 to this one and wondering where am I right now? I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm babbling. I'm actually recording this at like 5 a.m. I just happened to wake up early in the morning and decided I'm going to get some podcast editing done. So my brain's not 100% on. But that being said, thank you so much for being out there and listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you are subscribed. You can also follow me on social media at PiecingPod. And don't forget to join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, a fun little group of ravers in the middle of a desert, which is the disgusting world of Facebook movie groups. They're all so terrible, but ours is not. I keep mine closed so that way it's only cool people who are actually fun people who actually want to talk about movies, and it is actually a really fun place to talk about movies. So come join us, the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group. If you're not cool, I'm going to kick you off a cliff. I don't even know what that means, but you are not going to be able to stay because I keep it closed and I do kick out anyone who acts up and, like the rest of those Facebook groups is just not cool. So anyway, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces on Facebook. It's a great place to talk about movies. And it's time to close this one out with a piece of music. I was actually thinking about having a little bit of a techno beat going through the entire episode, but I decided against it. Good idea, but a little unnecessary. Let's see, what should I play for this one? And I'm digging through some of my older tracks, trying to find something that is like strictly electronic that would, be a good fit here. There's a lot of good picks here. I don't know. Let's see. I think I'm going to go from the first of my free bonus track albums that I used to put out on Bandcamp. I should do another one of those one day after my next album comes out. But anyway, this was a track that didn't quite make my regular first album, Echoes in the Dark. This is a track called On the Outside. Let's go with that. I don't think I've ever played this on one of these closing out an episode after 500 plus episodes. I don't think I've ever played this one. So, On the Outside from Further Into the Dark, which you can download for free from my Bandcamp. And we will be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
an All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.